U.S. President Donald Trump has terminated trade talks with Canada because of an anti-tariff ad from the Ontario government released in the USA. And we're going to get right to that now. So for more on the fallout from this is former Foreign Affairs Minister Peter MacKay and the Harper government. Mr. MacKay, appreciate you joining us this morning to talk about this. How do you respond to this? Donald Trump, taking serious offense to the use of Ronald Reagan's anti-tariff message here. How do you look at this? What's your assessment?
Well, I can see what was behind the intent, which was to strike at the very heart of the Republican Party, reminding them that President Reagan, who famously signed the original free trade agreement with Prime Minister Brian Mulroney and began a great economic union for both countries as far as trade. However, I would suggest that the timing of this is a little clunky. It came at a point in these very delicate trade negotiations that has clearly sent the president off, as we've seen before. We saw it with digital services taxes. We saw that when we were talking about retaliatory tariffs. This is a classic case of perhaps having poked the bear at an inopportune time.
And Peter, do you think that Trump's reaction to this is genuine outrage, or do you think that this is potentially just a strategic move to, have more to say, more to get out of the bargaining table with Canada?
It's a great question, Jen. It's a very, very difficult person to try to predict, to say the least. And we've seen it before. We've seen these sort of outrage or feigned outrage that then resulted in people coming back to the negotiating table. So that's the best that we could hope for. We know that other countries have gone about their negotiations differently. Mexico, for example, seems to have been quite successful in taking a more quiet and perhaps subdued approach. European Union, the UK. What's different here is that we've just ended up on the outside, Canada and China alone. And so I don't know what the prime minister thinks about this. I know that he was there in Washington 2 weeks ago, seemed to come back with some renewed optimism, and he has a budget coming up. So all of this very much weighs heavy, and like the sword of Damocles is holding, the Canadian economy ransom.
So he's got a budget coming up, but he's also on his way to Asia for a 9-day sort of, trade talk trip where Donald Trump is going to be at these different summits that the prime minister is going to be at. So, as a former foreign affairs minister, what kind of position does this put the prime minister in as he has to try to now,
put out the fire,
sew this back together somehow?
Yeah, it's awkward. And it also demonstrates, I think, Nick, a bit of fraying at the edges of the unified approach that we've had for the most part. Now, Premier Ford has gone off before with respect to threats against the U.S. on the energy file, and none of this seems to have been effective. The problem, coming from outside of Ontario is that this affects the entire country, and I'm curious as to whether there was any consultation before those ads were put out. Interestingly, as a side note, those ads are potentially going to result in litigation. And I'm not taking anybody's side here, but the ad is a little bit misleading in the sense that Ronald Reagan in 1987 was all about putting tariffs on Japan, I think is what he was talking about, in spite of the fact that he was expressing reluctance to do it.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Unfortunately, Peter, we're going to have to leave it there. But it's like Premier Doug Ford has gone fishing, and he succeeded in getting his message across, as CTV's political commentator Scott Reed, because now with Trump kind of reacting to it, it's getting huge play, not just in Canada, but all over the U.S.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's a long game. I think there's many more cards to be played in this particular hand.
Yeah, so let's hope the hand comes up for us, because we're kind of feeling a little trumped in the card sense, not in the political sense. Okay, Minister MacKay, or former
comes
minister.
Up for the Jays tonight.
Yeah, let's hope so. Okay, Peter MacKay, thanks for the time this morning. I appreciate this.